20 of our video series on the Mass. This is part 2 of the Offertory. Last week we talked about what the people are doing during the Offertory. Today we're going to talk about what the priest does during the Offertory. You probably notice that sometimes during Mass, the priest will say these prayers quietly, right? He'll raise up the host and he'll say some prayers quietly, usually if there's music playing, but also sometimes if there's not music playing, or, people singing, he'll still say it quietly. That's because the rubrics of the Mass, rubrics are the instructions that are given to the priest in the Roman Missal. This is a baby Roman Missal, basically. Those rubrics instruct the priest to pray these prayers in a low voice, and then if he chooses, he may pray them in a normal voice. Why would that happen? There are certain parts in the Mass where the priest prays things in a low voice because the Church knows that the priest is not a functionary. He's not there just to do and to crank out a Mass. He's there to pray through the Mass through the grace of Christ as the instrument of Christ in persona Christi. He's there to pray the Mass. And to pray the Mass, it's really helpful to have times where he prays to God silently. And that's what the quiet prayers, the whispered prayers of the priest are there for. And these prayers are directed towards different things, like the Benedictus, when he says, "Blessed are you, Lord God of all creation." He does that for the bread and the wine. He's offering to God these gifts, hearkening back to an ancient Hebrew prayer. And he's praying that silently, uniting his heart to the sacrifice of Christ. And then he has a prayer that says, this is a really beautiful prayer, actually. He says, by the mystery, when he's pouring the water into the wine. So that's symbolic of the unity of the body and of the human nature and the divine nature of Jesus. He says this, by the mystery of this water and wine, may we come to share in the divinity of Christ, who humbled himself to share in our humanity. The water representing the humanity, the wine representing the divinity of Christ. The mixture of those is present in the incarnation, and so therefore it's also present in the true presence of Jesus after the consecration under the forms of bread and wine. Then he says 2 other really beautiful prayers. One is a prayer asking God to accept and receive the offerings that are being given to God, and he does that with a profound bow. Profound bow means it's coming from the hips, and he says this, with humble spirit and contrite heart, may we be accepted by you, O Lord, and may our sacrifice in your sight this day be pleasing to you, Lord God. A prayer worth sitting with, asking God to accept the sacrifice that we give to him. Then he asks God to wash away his sins, to free him. And here he's quoting Psalm 51, when the server, expressing that forgiveness of sins by washing his hands, he says this, wash me, O Lord, from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. That's a beautiful prayer to pray in silent because he's asking Jesus, forgive me from my sins, that I come forward to offer this holy sacrifice of the Mass. May I do it worthily and well. So those are some of the prayers that the priest is praying during the Offertory.